You got some handouts? Yep. I'm going to make you work in this one, so you've all got some stuff to do. Yeah? So what we're going to look at today is trying to make some of this research real. Okay? So what we want you to walk away with from today, and this is what we set out to do, is actually have an action plan, or at least to have considered what you're going to do differently tomorrow and how you're going to do it. So it's not just good enough to do it differently. It's all well and good walking away and saying, oh, I'm going to change the world. And it'll never happen. Okay? So we want to be really, really particular about it. So what we're going to try and do is do a little bit of talking about these, but then break you up into different groups. And so we're going to have a service group, we're going to have a customer group, and we're going to have a retail physician group. And you can choose which one of those you want to work in as we go through it. Okay? But before that, I want to make you think a little bit more about it, if we can do. Okay? And just give you some foods for thought. Most of you have been in a service-orientated group already. So you've done the travel, you've done the weight management, you've done the smoking cessation. But what I want you to think about it is, how do you work that with your GPs? Okay? And it's good enough to be promoted, but how do we promote it in alliance with the GPs rather than in competition with the GPs? Because otherwise we're just going to piss them off. And we can't afford to do that because it's about a partnership approach with it. How do you know if actually that's the right ones to do in terms of your target needs? How do you know what your demographics are in that group? And how have you worked that out? Okay, and I want you to share this between you rather than me giving you the answers to it. Because actually I'm going to learn something from it anyway. I know there's enough smart guys in this room that are doing things a lot better than I'm doing them, for sure. But it's pretty near talking about busy mums. But what else? How old is your group patients that come into your pharmacy, and what other things do you know? What's your smoking demographics? Because I'm sure they've covered elsewhere. But also, what are the local priorities for the CCG and for the Health and Wellbeing Board? And how can you find those out, and how can you link it in with them? How can we raise awareness about it? I want you to really think about that. Do we just, if we put a signpost up that says we do an AHC clinic, do people actually know what that means? And what things do we need to do about it? And again, the medication reviews, it's staggering that actually patients have no idea that we offer these services. Lloyd's did a great job of calling it a medicine MOT. And I thought that brought it down into a way patients could begin to understand it. As much as I don't like the multiples, I do love what they do. And we should be copying it and improving it as much as we physically can. Okay? That we steal their ideas and we turn them around. And then the consultation room. That's that's probably one of the biggest things that's come out of this survey for me, tying that in with the GPHC. But there's other stuff that we've got that we don't think about. Okay? So I want that group to just think. We're going to break these in 5 minutes initially and then just work on the services bit. And then I'm going to get you to turn it around a bit more. So in this group that's getting closer to the customer, how do we do our marketing? Do we do any marketing? Vast majority of pharmacies don't do anything. Okay, we're a reactive service that comes in, and patients have a green form, and we go, thank you very much, and there's your medicine, and we go back out again. If we were sitting with a barrister and an accountant this week, and they talked about goodwill in another business. And the goodwill in another business belongs to the list of customers. It isn't related to the contract, it isn't related to the location, but it's related to how you deal with that list. Oh, you guys have got exactly the same. Their relationship is in the pharmacy and how we deal with them. It's not about the patients. So we've got to look at the assets that we have and how we can turn that around and what the patients want from that and how we can best communicate to it. Okay? And it's not just about the pharmacist, but actually it's the staff. They are our unsung heroes in the area that we live in. They actually know the patients far better than we do, and they understand them much better than we do. But there's been some other research done, I'm sorry from the CIG group here, but they were saying that the average person knows 100 people in the pharmacy. So if you've got 10,000 customers, actually the staff are only going to know 300 or 400 customers. But you'll find that 20% of your customers actually bring you 80% of your business. And so who are the 20% that we need to know better to get that business? We also spend an awful lot of time when we do market looking for new customers. But what can we do with existing customers to get them to come more often, or to get them to buy more, or to get them to do things differently? Right? And that's far, far easier to do than it spent thousands of pounds over here trying to get new customers, and actually if you're not looking after your existing customers and they fall away, that's far worse than you get seepage at that end. Friendly services, and this is critical. And independents generally do get it really well. Okay? But actually, if we're not doing a friendly service, if we're not acknowledging people when they come in, if we're not getting to know them, and there's some people who use loyalty services as independents to do that through the PMR, or they use it through Newmark and their little stamp machine, if not if you use them. But there are tools out there that we can do. So let's have a chat about that. And then how do we create an atmosphere that's encouraging browsers? He said, do you want to wait or are you going to call back? He said, well, why don't you take 10 minutes? It'll only be 10 minutes. Have a look around the shop, or we're doing a survey on this. Can you please fill it in for us? Or would you like a cup of coffee while you wait? I appreciate that not all pharmacies have got the space to do that, and it's different. But actually, I want us to think about, rather than dismiss it, think about why is the patient there, and what do we want them to do when they are there? Is it an opportunity to do an MUR? Is it an opportunity to talk to them about their asthma or their COPD? Is it an opportunity to talk to them about the travel services that we're going to open after today, or smoking services? Yeah? So it's not just about keeping them in or out, it's about what we're going to do with them when we're there. And then in terms of the retail position, I'm going to start at the bottom. How do we do that? How do we get that done? How do we change our own perceptions? Because if you're anything like me, you go, I'm so busy when I walk in at 7:30 in the morning, or 8 o'clock in the morning, the shop isn't even open. The staff will actually end up opening the shop, and then I'll come back and down and work in the dispensary. I don't see it anymore, I'll be honest. My sign came down 2 months ago to get the lights replaced on it, and it's still down. That's terrible. But I think I'm fairly typical as well. Maybe not in terms of the sign, and we have something up that looks good. But it could be an awful lot better. How often are you changing your posters in the window? When was the last time the place got painted? Shop refits at the very least should be done every Graham. It'd be good to get your thoughts on it. But for me, at the very least every 10 years.
10 years and refresh every 5.
Yeah. It doesn't cost you anything because it's an investment and it's written off the tax. But the goodwill you'll generate from it is phenomenal. We did the first pharmacy I ever took over as a manager. It was in a lovely area of Liverpool. But it was in the old, so if that was the shop front, we had a door that went in like that and out. And the pharmacy had been there for 20 years. And it looked horrendous. And I know most places aren't like that anymore. But literally, we put a whole new shop front onto it. And within 6 months, we doubled the business. Okay? But what was scary for me, within 2 weeks of doing it, a lot of local people who were there walked in and said, oh, you've opened a new pharmacy. Or they didn't even know the place was there. Yeah? And so we've got to create something that makes them want to know that we're there and show how we're doing it. Okay? The retail position, there's 2 options on price. Okay? We can stay expensive or you can reduce it and you can compete on price. But if you've got to stay expensive, what's the added value that you're doing for it? Right? So I'm not saying that we need to go to the supermarket or the Boots 2 for 3. That's one option, and that depends on your patients locally and your customers. But you can still say, you want to say, well, I don't mind marketing hard because I'm going to offer this level of service over here that my patients want, and that's going to be the added value from it. So just because the survey says price is an issue, it's not necessarily price, it's a perception of price and the value that we put onto that. Mavs in the room, they're great at that. They're looking at the highest price lawyers over here, but they're doing really, really well. And we don't mind, if we go for a barrister, we don't mind questioning the price of the barrister because it's the value we're going to get from it. Okay? If you go to Mercedes, you're expecting to pay more than if you go to the garage around the corner. But Mercedes give you a nice cup of coffee, they give you how they look after, they tell you when your service is due, they give you an inspection of it afterwards.
Can I come back on that? Because actually, that was a nice complimentary way of saying that actually we're not cheap. And if you sell yourself as cheap, in fact, as in the presentation downstairs, just before, where price came up for doing travel clinics, and if you position yourself as cheap, two things happen. First of all, you're making lower margin. Secondly, people have a perception that you're cheap. So if you position yourself as value, so you say we're not the most expensive, but we're certainly not the cheapest. So you position yourself as value by offering something which is perceived to have a value to it, but people are not paying bottom ends, otherwise they think, what are they actually getting for that?
You volunteered yourself to go to the room. It's in that corner of the mind. To work in this group.
Okay.
That's the insight we need. We've got to stop looking at pharmacy. We've got to look at what every other industry does and how we can learn from it. If we continue to look at what us do and Lloyds do and Boots do and compete with each other, we're in a downward spiral. Okay? We didn't really get into discussing CAT-M this morning, but I tell you, CAT-M has just driven down and down and down and down, and it's going to continue to go down and down and down unless we change the proposition and the value of the adding. That's our core product. In terms of demonstrating knowledge and professionalism, I missed this one. Lloyds, at the minute, I absolutely love what they're doing. They've made it really clear there are two categories that we're going after, pain and skincare. And if you go into their new shops that are managing pain and skincare, it's like going into Apple stores. And they're taking the Apple effect into pharmacy. And you know what? The government can't control the cost of pain and they can't control the cost of the skin. And we have huge partners in the room that will do that and want to work with us in those areas. So we've got to think differently about it. Okay, so we're going to break it up into groups. It's a self-choice group. What I want you to do is 5 minutes brainstorming on the services, on getting closer to the customer, including the retail proposition. And then we're going to try and get those done in different groups in feedback. You've all got forms on your desk, and if you haven't, we're going to get you to fill them in. And we've got some more here. So project 1, in terms of the service that you want to do. Project 2, in terms of the getting closer to the customer and the retail position. And if you just come away with 2 or 3 areas that you want to do, then we're going to look at that when we look at the people in it and the priorities. But one thing we're really keen about today is we don't add this into the existing workload. We've got to look at the existing workload and see what we need to take out to enable us to do that. Okay? You're all falling asleep. You're all too tired. Am I going too fast for you? My Irish accent gone too much. So we've got anybody who likes to want to think about the services come up here. If anybody wants to talk about the customers, go to that board. And anybody wants to talk about the retail positioning, go down to that side of it. Okay? It's going to be fun, guys, honest. It's not hard work.
How good to see you.
So, it wasn't actually in this order, but
It doesn't matter.
But value was obviously something which we talked about before. So value. Pharmacists can't compete with, independents can't compete with multiples on price. But what you can do is you can talk about what you offer in terms of quality, quality trusted service at not much greater price. So it's not a drive to the bottom. If you're going to fail if you try and beat multiples on price. More professional feel to the consultation room, and also to use it for wider uses, for things like, you know, when people come in just to get their prescription. So it's more than just what you may currently be using consultation room for. Greater use of consultation rooms is what patients are talking about. A more appropriate appearance of the shop. So it's clearer about what is actually done in the shop. Easier to find things. Now, something that we brought in, something John and I, we know from the legal world, we were always talking in the legal world about cross-selling. People come to us for employment services. Well, do they know that we do property, tax and wills and everything else? So, when people come into your shops, how much cross-selling do you do? Do you have leaflets on the counter? Never mind those out-of-date flyers on the window, but what do you have on the counter? What do you talk to people about? And this leads into this point, which is really interesting, this last point. Staff talking, engaging with patients while they wait. So, you know, it's all about being focused, having a focused conversation with your patients as they're waiting there. Use every opportunity to speak. Pharmacists to come up from the back of the shop. Maybe staff need some coaching with this, some training, some coaching to help them to engage better and press those buttons to actually build those relationships. And finally, to be aware of local or cultural issues. So, for example, sorry, I can't remember, who was it here? So it had 3, yes, you had 3, someone who spoke 3 languages, because those languages were prevalent locally. So whatever is going on locally, be aware of that and get fine-tuned into what's happening. Because again, the multiples are not quite so locally attuned, but the independents can be more so.
Sam?
Sure. So we looked at the customer side. I think the one thing that everybody was agreed on up front was There was a number of areas that we talked about there in terms of confidence and empowerment, and there's that might be different for different people as to what they need to put in place to address that. Just thinking into some of the retail stuff, there was also a suggestion of changing the layout of the shop to make the pharmacists more visible and accessible, even if they're not necessarily right at the front of the shop. Looking at some of the other stuff that people could do in a slightly more tangible way, we had actually badging for staff so that people could identify who was who, so that if they weren't necessarily talking to the pharmacist, people could look more professional, people knew who they were, and using uniforms. So again, that again links into making the shop feel like a professional environment. Then we talked about leveraging the services, which I know we're going to come on to try and build relationships with the customer, and that led into an interesting suggestion of something that's being done in some of these stores, which is about training staff to try and address customers by name. And that's before they've told you their name. You've got a relationship with that person, they're coming in. And work on, again, as was mentioned over here, how do you then do link advice and link selling and understand, what are that particular customer's issues so that you can make sure that you're prepared for the right sort of advice. We talked a little bit then about how we understand our customers and what we already know about them, and a great suggestion was to use national contract to understand your customer demographic a bit more and use your question there. And in terms of trying to break down then which of those customers we can do more with, it was really about starting with the must-do areas. So if you're doing your NURs anyway, focus on those kind of areas to really try and think about what more you could do. We came on to try and think about how we would prioritise this in terms of what are the projects that people want to go away and actually try and tackle. And essentially, the suggestion was that if you start addressing all of these things, ultimately what we're saying is that we need to go away and become HLPs, because then most of this is already covered anyway.
Thank you. When we started off looking at some of the services that people wanted to do, and feedback from today was the travel and weight management and actually EHC. And then we talked about how we would identify patients, and that's coming from looking at our PMRs, looking at hypertensive drugs, looking at diabetics, and looking at that, but also acknowledging the patients when they come in, and looking at getting the staff geared up to be able to deal with those as well. And staff training on soft skills in terms of introductions and conversations was as important in terms of the technical aspects of the clinics and the services that we were doing. Not only that, but we looked at the opportunity to work outside the greater health professions, looking at GP practices, and understanding the common ground that was there. And certainly with travel clinics that we're not aiming to compete with them, but we're looking to work alongside them. And understanding that they can support each other with it rather than working together. And that came across whenever we talked about smoking clinics as well. We did delve into a little bit about marketing. I posed that here, but looking at posters, talking to customers, training the staff with soft skills, but also the wider healthcare teams, thinking about people like dentists whenever we're talking about the smoking clinics. And because they're actually seeing it in the patient's mouth, and there's a great opportunity there to bring it out. But actually asking customers to recommend when they're being really satisfied and successful with it. And getting the customers to be our own best advocates for it. Using t-shirts in the shop and looking at collaborative working elsewhere. We then tried to go on and make this a bit real. So everybody's prioritised what they wanted to do, and they've started to think about who they need to reach out to in the team tomorrow when they go into work to start switching some of these things on, be it the companies that's involved or the staff. And then we started talking about how our expectations of it, and whether we wanted to be a clinic that was going to turn over £10,000 next week, or one that was going to turn over £10,000 in 12 months' time, and how we gradually build up to it and manage our expectations around that. But we also recognise that we can't just do this straight away as individuals, that we need to do something differently. And we started to explore what we're going to stop doing to enable us to start doing some of the other things. And that part of that's around delegation with the staff. Part of it's about being out and spending more time with patients, and actually the pharmacists working with the patients in the consultation room and promoting the services that way. Other conversations were had around delegating things like paperwork and getting other people in to support us with that. Or where we've already delegated some of the paperwork, actually recognising that key member staff's got some skills, and that they might start to be able to delegate something to somebody else to enable them to take it up. We also shared that we, certainly in our pharmacy, and I know lots of others, run these clinics with the pharmacist overseeing them, but not actually doing them. And how we've delegated that to the staff that we've got and the team to take ownership of it, and how they report back on their KPIs within it, and how they manage it and understand how they're doing it. And then we just get over a list of what we must do today to start making this happen. things we didn't announce, I'm not sure if I announced at the start, but I'm certainly Claire's going to do it when we go back down. This is our spring conference. All being well, goodness, we're going to have an autumn conference. Okay? It's going to be in early in October. And what we're going to invite you all to do is come back and say, what have you learned from today that you've done differently? And I would like you to present a paper on it or a poster on it at our autumn conference to show how it's worked. Okay? No pressure, no expectations, and I think we might be able to persuade RB to support us gently through that as well. Okay? But we're really keen, no pressure. It's if, buts, maybe. But we're really keen to make this work. We're also keen, one of the things we talked about in this group is how we get 2 or 3 pharmacies to start to work together in sharing those resources for delegating, be it in terms of the support staff for some of the admin roles between the 2 or 3 pharmacies, or sharing experiences. One way we didn't go, but actually, if there's 3 in the street, why are we all trying to do weight management, flu, and smoking? Why doesn't one of us take each of them and become an expert in it and refer our patients between each other? That's a long way to go, and it's a big step. But actually, there's a lot of benefits in it. And we've got to explore that in local groups, how we can work together and how we can support each other. And it's coffee time. So thank you very much. Please come back. We've got one last session where we tie all of this together. We've got a fantastic presentation from Leslie at the RPS about the faculty and incorporating revalidation, because I know that's quite scary as well. But we'll only have 1 more hour, and then we're all gone. We'll try and get you away quick. Thank you very much indeed.